Hi, I'm Holly Lyle, and welcome to the chat. We're going to start in just a second here. All right. And there. Okay. All my alarms were set to make sure I didn't miss this. Let's start first. Thank you very much for showing up. I am really excited to get the chance to talk to you. This is the live chat for the How to Think Sideways class of 2015 launch. And I've got a couple of things that we need to go over first. The chat is in here for you to talk to each other. I am not going to have a chance to answer questions out of chat. I have 14 pages of chat. Thank you very much for all the questions. We are going to go through all of them, so we may be here for a while. With that in mind, you might want to go ahead and get yourself a glass of water to sit by your screen or desk. And you will probably want a notebook and a pen so that you can take some notes, because I am going to go fairly into depth in for some of the questions here. You asked a bunch of really good questions. The next thing, if you'll notice on the right side of your screen, you have a chat bar. It has chat and polls, attendees, pop-ins, and the first thing that you're going to start with there is chat. Like I said, you can chat. You're going to be chatting to everybody but me. So you can ask each other questions, discuss my answers, whatever you want to do. On polls, I've got a live one for you right here, and I'm going to go ahead and start that now. The question on the poll is, why do you want to write for a living? And it has a couple of fairly serious answers. It's got one that is kind of in there for I don't know, because a lot of folks don't, and that's fine. The next thing that we are going to look at is pop-ins. Towards the end of what we're discussing here, I'm going to go ahead and give you a link that will open up in a new page for you and show you the How to Think Sideways curriculum. And then I'll also put up a couple of buy links for you if you have looked at the curriculum and decide that you want it, or if you just want to, from what we discuss here, decide that you want it. But that's later. First, let's go ahead and get to questions, because there are a lot of them. Oh, and if you have a notebook and a pen, let me go ahead now and give you the categories, because I went through this morning and tried to put everything into a coherent structure so that I'm not just randomly answering your questions, but I'm actually sort of trying to make them make sense for you. The categories, we're going to start with my daughter's writing, because that got a fair amount of interest. The writing process, and a lot of stuff on the writing process. Concepts and ideas. Story planning. Revision and editing. Revision and editing, which are not synonyms. Publishing, and we are going to go through all versions of publishing, indie, SelfPub, and commercial publishing, and then the conflict between the two, or the versus between the two. Writing as a business. Products, novels, short stories, ring cycles, and everything else. The job. The class itself. So, with all of that said, and hoping that you got the topics down, and if you didn't, I have all 14 pages of the question set up as a PDF for you, and also the links that I mentioned, that I will mention as we go through this, for some of the questions or for some of the answers to questions that you asked me, are also going to be available in the PDF, and you can just grab them from there, so that if you just focus on writing down answers, you'll get all of the questions written out for you later. Okay, on my daughter's writing. You said your daughter is writing an average of 3 to 4 stories per week. What word count are these stories on average? Is she selling them as individual stories or as collections? I'm not allowed to read them, but from what she says, about 150,000, or I'm sorry, about 1,500 words per story, and she is selling them as both individual stories and collections. She writes 5 or 6 stories. She puts that into a collection. And she's very excited with the way this is working for her. She's getting a fair backlist, which backlist is something we will get into later. But this is really taking off for her, and I'm very excited for her. What role, if any, do print editions play in her career structure? None. She does not do print. What kind of situation for a writer of short stories would make it worthwhile to, oh wow. At the point where you have enough stories to justify putting it into a book, do it. One of the concepts that we are going to be going over a couple of times in here today is the concept of multiple streams of income. You want these. You want as many streams of income as you can possibly get, because if any one stream of income dies on you and you have other streams of income coming in, you will continue to be able to pay your bills and make money and feed yourself and all of the important things that jobs do. So always consider that when you have a bunch of short stories, put them into a collection. Figure out how to make the collection coherent by topic or by genre or whatever. But if you are indie pubbing, then always turn your stuff into collections. There's no downside to this. Okay, next question. I'm interested in how to increase my sales. How does your daughter make enough sales to bring in an income? She is prolific as hell, and she's writing in a genre that is rabid for what she's producing. But one of the most important things that you can do is, we will go into this also later, but you have to know who your reader is, and she knows who her readers are. She's very, very specific about this. And it does not matter what genre you write in. She's writing erotica, but I'm writing science fiction and fantasy and suspense novels and YA, and I am all over the board, and I have readers for all of this. You have to understand the stories that you want to write, and you have to understand who the person is who is going to read your stories. And basically, you are your first reader, always. If you are not writing something that you would want to read yourself, you're writing in the wrong genre. You are writing the wrong stories. There is no point whatsoever in writing stuff that you consider crap, because everybody else who reads what you've written will understand from reading something that you don't care about that you are reading what you consider crap. If you want to sell, write the stories that you want to read and find the readers who share your passions. Okay, next. Can you refer us to some of your daughter's stories? I got a couple of variations on this. No, she has been very, very careful to separate herself from her pseudonym. And in general, I'm not a big fan of pseudonyms, but if you are writing something that is in a genre that you do not wish to have your name known with, because you don't want to have people showing up on your doorstep that scare you, or because you don't want to get a lot of hate mail or nasty emails or just a lot of things that are apparently significant problems for erotica writers, then you genuinely need to have a pseudonym. And so she has been very careful about this, and no, I'm not going to out her. Okay, let's move on to the writing process. And the first subtopic for the writing process that we have is being creative. Got a lot of questions on this. What is the best way to get started writing creatively? I'm following your 3-day How to Think Sideways launch lesson right now, the little workshop I did. And I've done research on writing before, but I want to hear your input on this subject. The best way to get started writing creatively is to ask yourself, what sort of stories do I like? What sort of subjects do I love? There is a a process that I teach in How to Think Sideways called the sweet spot map. And it engages both the right side of your brain and the left side of the brain in allowing you to discover what these things are, because very often people discover that the specific genre that they thought they wanted to write in isn't, that the stories that really passionately move them are in something completely different. And this is, it's a really fascinating process. But what you're doing is you're asking yourself, what matters to me? And at the point where you have a good answer for what matters to me, you have something to write about. My inner editor keeps interfering while I write. He's asking me to check the spelling of the grammar, and I get that I have to correct all that later, but it's really stopping the flow of my writing, as half of me checks what I just wrote instead of helping write the next line. This is somebody who is very much living in her left brain, and it's something that you have to give yourself permission to let the other half of your brain out. And the first lesson, well, the first two lessons in How to Think Sideways are specifically about getting the two sides of your brain to work together. The short version of this is that you have to start listening to the little pings of ideas and never, ever tell yourself that's a stupid idea, because all of those little pings of ideas that you are getting, if you are a left brain thinker, are your right brain trying to tell you something important. And very often that's going to be your story idea. And if you say, well, that's stupid, instead of writing it down and following up on it, then you are losing the best and most creative part of yourself. There is a part of you that is going to focus on safe, on never rocking the boat. And everybody has this. Everybody has this safe thing inside, this perfect thing inside, a victim thing and a feel thing. And the first lesson in How to Think Sideways is safe never starts, perfect never finishes, victim never acts, and feel never thinks. You have to create in yourself this ability to listen to both sides of your brain. And if you are weighted more toward one side or the other, the side that is in charge is going to be very defensive about giving up territory, about listening to the other half. There have been some really interesting studies done on right and left brain. If you cut the corpus callosum, which is the thick band of nerves that run between the two sides of the brain, and you just completely sever that connection, the two brains will continue to operate. One will operate the right side, one will operate the left side, and you will, they manage to coherently get you walking and things like that. That's, more back brain. But the parts of you that are creative and that are thinking are two separate people with two separate, complete sets of interests and areas of fear and hate and passion, and they work best together. So your process is to learn how to get them to talk to each other. One doesn't use words, one uses images and pictures and scents and little flashes of memory dug out from the big toy box in the back of your brain. This is something that we discuss in depth, because not only is it fascinating, but it's how you get yourself to be creative. And then your left brain is how do you get yourself to not suck? And that's very important too. So, okay, let's move on to the next question. Do you have any advice for a non-morning person to become one? I've heard plenty of authors suggest writing first thing in the morning, but currently every time I try, I curl right back under the covers. There is no perfect time to write. There is only your time to write. There is not one way that you have to do this. My husband is a night person. I'm a morning person. But I'll tell you, when I had a baby And I was doing this full time, and I had a deadline. I was writing secret text book 2. And he was a newborn, and then through about 6 or 7 months, and I had to write at night. I mean, late at night. And I am the world's perennial morning person. I pop out of bed at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning with no problem. But keep me up past 11 or 12, or keep me up to 10, and I'm having a hard time. You will learn how to fit your process and your time and everything to the situation that you're in at the time. The way you do this is to write a lot. Write whenever you can. Do it in 10-minute increments. Set a timer and write for 10 minutes. You'll be surprised at how much you can get done just in 10-minute increments when you have just a little bit of peace and quiet. I've done whole books in 10-minute increments. The second secret texts novel, Vengeance of Dragons, was one of them, because with the baby, that's your option, man. Set a timer and make it a soft timer so you don't wake him up when he's asleep. Okay. How important is writer's space to writing? Does a writer need to have someplace they can go to be away from everyone else? Are there tricks to writing and working with the muse when people are around, even if other people aren't directly interacting with you? For me, the big trick has been, do I want to eat this week? And I don't really recommend that one, but I've written out in the middle of my office for a while. Was in the living room. The television set and the couch were behind me. The kids were on the couch watching TV and occasionally smacking each other, and I had to, lift myself out of my focus enough to make them stop that. But for whole large portions of my career, I haven't had an office. I haven't had a private space. I've been right out in the middle of freaking traffic in the middle of the room. Your mileage may vary on this. I got really good at blocking people out when I was about 14 or 15. And my brother was a pain in the butt and would come and stand in the doorway of my room, which I was not allowed to close. And he'd just stand there and look at me. And we would, he was younger. Little brothers do stuff like that. And I learned how to live my life, a lot of my life, inside my head. That's an important skill. I know this is much tougher for men than it is for women generally. Guys have this kind of protective instinct, kind of a hunter instinct that makes it, they seem to be more wired toward noticing things around them. The fact that I can shut things out so completely has been a running joke in the family for years. I work hard to notice things, but for me, noticing things, unless I'm in scouting mode for a book, is very difficult. Because all of the really, really interesting stuff, many times, is the plot idea I just had or the character that just appeared. If you got to have a private place, closets work great. Deadlines. Oh, no. Okay, sorry. Next one. I became blocked for the last month, and it seems the muse has withdrawn for a bit. I'm stuck on the question that I've asking myself, which is, what am I writing? What do I want this to look like at the end? I just don't know. I don't seem to be able to define exactly who are the primary characters in my work. There are too many in my head. Also, what is my storyline or purpose in this? Those are good questions. The first thing the thing that really pops out at me here, though, is I have too many characters in my head. Put down every single character who is in your head on a piece of paper. Ask yourself, what does this character have to do with a specific story that I want to tell? And if the character doesn't, kill him. Very simple solution. I am hell on wheels for wiping out characters when they do not pull their weight in a story. And one of the things that I highly recommend as a way to get the rest of your characters motivated is to wipe out one that thought he was indispensable. Anyway, on to the next. If you're just refinding a love of writing for the first time, again, after 25 years, what would you absolutely avoid doing? I actually have a very, very specific answer to this, and it has to do with word counts. People, when they are just getting back into starting writing again and getting excited about it, they think, hey, I am doing 500 words today. I'm going to increase my word count to 750 words and see how that works out. And it works out great. So they say, okay, I'm going to increase my word count to 1,000 words a day. And maybe it works out great, or maybe it doesn't. If it does, let's say they keep going and they're at 2,500 words a day. Sooner or later, no matter how well this whole process of writing more words is going, you are going to write to failure. And writing to failure is exactly as grim and appalling as it sounds like, because instead of having an awesome day where you wrote 500 words, you hit your deadline, and then you kept on writing because it was fun and everything else was gravy, you have now failed to hit your word count. And that goes down in the right side of your brain, which is very sensitive about things like this, as failure, as I tried to do something and I failed. Don't do that. When you find a word count that is really working well for you, leave it alone. And on the days when you are going great, just go a little farther, just keep writing, but don't count that as this is what I have to do from now on. Make that this was a great writing day. And the next day, if your word count is 300 words or 500 words or whatever it is, and you beat that again, awesome. You had another great writing day, and leave it at that. Okay, deadlines. The idea of stories are easy for me, but when you work at it for a living, your courses all speak of working to a deadline. Is that from the very start, or does it come into play after you've established market, published your project? It depends on a lot of different factors. One of the things it depends on is whether you are going to get paid for what you're doing. Now, if you are indie pubbing, then the answer to that question is yes, I am going to get paid for what I'm doing. If you are writing towards commercial publishing, the answer to that is maybe. I might see some money from this 6 months from now, a year from now. Indie publishing is immediate. You get your work out there, and as soon as you get your work out there, you start another piece of work. And you keep deadlines with yourself if you want to make a living at this. If this is your job, then you start with the deadlines and you hit them as best you can. And if you see yourself constantly missing your deadlines, you're setting your deadlines too tight. This is another case of writing to failure. If you have set deadlines and set deadlines and set deadlines and have never hit one, the right side of your brain is taking all of that data in and saying, I am failing, I am failing, I am failing. What you do for that is you keep a deadline, but you make it wider. You give yourself more space and more time, and you train your brain to succeed and to understand that when you sit down to do this, you are going to succeed. It's a very delicate process. People get all crazy about numbers, about, my God, I've got to have 3,000 words a day or 5,000 words a day. On bad days, on really bad days, I have written 14,000 words a day. I do not recommend this, and there is no way in hell that I would accept that as my schedule. The fact that I can do it doesn't mean I should. 3,000 words a day is pretty miserable. That's a slog. If you are doing this and you are doing it for a living, you want it to be fun. You don't want it to suck. If you want a job that sucks, work in an office, get a cubicle job. You go dig ditches. I don't know. Digging ditches doesn't sometimes sound all that bad. You're outside in fresh air. But cubicle jobs, those don't seem fun to me. Uh, your objective is to love what you do, because if you love what you do, you are getting a life that is worth living. And if that's got to matter. The value of your own life has got to matter. And if writing is something that you love, great, do it. If writing is like punishment to you, but you think it's a quick way to make a living, oh, stop. Because this isn't anybody's quick way to make a living. Now you can get money coming in quickly, but this is not the instant route to fame and riches. Every once in a while somebody will get lucky, but people like me, who have been making a living at this for, well, in my case, since 1991. This was my full-time job from February of 1992. If you are like me, your idea of making a living is pay the bills, have some left over. And that's, if you are happy with that, and if you can say, hey, I get to do a job that I love every single day, then do that. If you are looking at this as, I'm going to be a millionaire, look someplace else. Okay, crit groups. Wow, there's a whole section on crit groups later, but I have one question that kind of got out of position here. Oh, no, okay, they're all here. Okay. If I decide to self-pub, how do I know I don't suck? And if I decide, yeah. And this question made me laugh out loud, but it's an awesome question. For authors going traditional, the sign that we don't suck is when an agent agrees to represent us and an editor agrees to publish us and a reviewer gives us a great review. And in the same vein, how do you know when you're ready to self-pub in the first place? My big fear is that I'll start putting stuff out there before my writing actually reaches a professional level. And I'll turn off hordes of would-be readers with a slew of amateur stories. These are, how do I know I don't suck? Yeah, you would think that the commercial publishing route would give you the validation that your work doesn't suck, that it should have. But have you read books? I mean, there are some horrible, horrible books that made it through the publisher, editor, agent gauntlet. And there are some guys, there's this one guy I absolutely love. I can't read his writing. I cannot read a word of it. And I'm not going to give you his name because I don't want to run the guy down, because he is my hero. Dude could not write his way out of a paper bag. His plots were horrible. His characters were paper thin. His writing was atrocious. And he's published, I don't know, hundreds of books, hundreds, with a commercial publisher. He and I had the same agent. I think he must have been doing these things about one every day, maybe every 2 days, flying through them. He didn't get edited. He didn't get fixed, but he sold. He's dead now. He sold, man. And his stuff is still out there and it is still selling. And it's atrocious. So the fact that your writing might not be great is in no way, shape, or form indicative of the kind of career you're going to have. There are New York Times bestsellers whose work I can't read. And I'm sure that, if you read a lot, and if you're a writer, you need to, that you've had the same experience, that there is crap sells. That doesn't mean I want to write it. I am very specific about what I want. I know who my readers are, and I'm writing for them. And well, I'm writing for myself first. And I have managed to find the readers who like what I write. But you are good enough when somebody pays for your story on Amazon and doesn't ask for a refund. And that's your validation right there. That a reader was willing to read your book and was happy enough with it to not ask for a refund, to not give you a bad review. You're going to get bad reviews. I get bad reviews. Everybody gets bad reviews. And some of them are going to be nasty and snarky and just evil. Some of them are going to very clearly be from people who haven't read what you wrote. Some of them are going to be somebody who thinks that you are you shouldn't be allowed to do what you're doing, that you shouldn't, that your genre is wrong, that your subject matter is wrong, that you don't have the necessary degrees to do what you're doing, or whatever. People have stupid reasons for doing bad reviews. My solution to this, for the most part, is I don't read them. But because the good review is not the validation. The fact that somebody paid money for your work and then didn't ask for it back is the validation. That means it was good enough. That means that they got something out of it. They appreciated it. Good enough. And from good enough, you just get better. You focus on every story you write being better than the one you write before. This is something I teach. It's a process. It's once you know how it works, it's a very simple process, but it takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of writing. All right. And the other thing with this is there's like a part 2 to that question. How do I know when I don't suck? So that you are not flinging raw, crappy fiction out onto the internet in a form that you will never be able to pull back, I highly, highly recommend that you get into a good writing group. Now, I have on my hollylyle.com site an article called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or How to Choose a Writer's Group. And basically, the odds are, if you are in a small area, you are going to have to make your own. One of the things that we're going to be adding to the How to Think Sideways site, once it becomes Holly Lyle Online Writing School and we get over to the new software, is private writing groups where, one person can purchase their own private writing group that they can have right on the site and invite the people that they want and run it the way that they want to run it. And it will be online, and that way you can have writing groups for, $5-10 a month that, depending on how many people you want to invite. And really, I don't recommend going more than about 10 people, because you want to have time for everybody to read everybody's stuff. You want to have time for crits. You want to have an established structure where the crits that people are getting and giving are along a set of guidelines that will actually be relevant for the writer. And this is one of the links that will be included in the PDF, is this article, so you don't need to hunt for it now. But what you're doing is you are establishing an area of trust where you know that the feedback that you are going to get is going to be valuable, and you are training each other to give valuable feedback. And I got started in a writer's group, and one of the things that I discovered that really surprised me is that I learned far, far more from listening to other writers' work and reading other writers' work and figuring out what worked and what didn't about it than I did from listening to their comments on mine, because I was defensive about my work, and I wasn't the least bit defensive about theirs. Go figure. So I learned how to spot good writing and bad writing by reading my colleagues' work, and I got better that way. That was, for me, that was one of the biggest and most important elements of my writing, was listening to other new writers at my level, reading their work. I cannot recommend this highly enough. This is huge. And here we've got somebody who says, I belong to dozens of writing sites and groups. I've put my time into each and every one of them, and I never get feedback on my own writing. What that means is that you're in a crappy writing group. Get a new one, make a new one, build your own writing group. because yeah, writers groups fall into three categories, and I go into this in the article, but the most common one is one where there's one person who is in charge, who has done a little bit of publishing or something, where this gives him or her a position of authority. And if you think you know how to write, you're crazy. You can know parts of how to write. Writing teaches me something new every day I do it. And frequently, it just beats my head into the dirt until I want to cry. Because no matter how good you get, no matter how many times you have published, there is still more that you don't know and still more that you have to learn. One of the things that How to Think Sideways does is teach you how to learn more writing on your own so that you can continue to get better. This is a process I have learned at great cost. Okay, now here we've got, how can I get authors to give my books a blurb? Some, like Barry Eisler and you, don't give blurbs. I understand that an author's time is valuable, but the blurb benefits both parties, often can lead to a reader buying the books of both. Not really. The blurb, it might sell a few copies of my book to someone if I did it, but I don't have the time to read the book, and I won't blurb a book I don't read. I won't do that. The majority of blurbs you see are these things sent around by publishers, and the author says, yeah, I'll blurb the book, reads 5 pages of it, goes, oh, awesome, and blurbs. Because your job is writing. And if you want blurbs that are valuable, if you want blurbs that are worthwhile, the only blurbs that count in my book are blurbs from the people who I know actually read the book. You know who those are? Readers. So at the point where you start getting books up on Amazon and you start having readers who are going in and writing reviews, and they're going, oh my God, I love this. This was awesome. That's your blurb right there. That person who read the book has credibility. Big name author has no credibility whatsoever in this. Where I'm concerned, no. It's important that the person that loved your book really did, because if you go on the quote of some writer who didn't read it, and they said, oh, this is great, and you hate it, guess what effect that has? They won't read your book, and they won't read the book of the person who blurbed it either, because that person thought it was great. So don't blurb books. Write reviews, write honest, genuine, passionate reviews about books you love, and that writer gets a blurb. And hope that your readers have the passion for your work to do the same for you, and that's your blurb. Okay, rhythm. Is there a rhythm to writing a novel? What do you want to accomplish in the first third of the book, the middle, and the end? Okay. This operates on a false assumption, which is that books and writing novels work like writing movies. With movies, you have 110 pages roughly for a workable script now. Each page is about a minute of the movie, and you can come in at 90 and still have a full-length movie. You have beats where you have to hit a specific beat. You have a midpoint. You have a twist at like 2/3 of the way through the front part of the book. You have this very, very solid structure. Novels are not like that. Novels are not even remotely like writing a script for a movie. With a novel, I could make a case for starting the novel by writing the ending, but doing it in a way that you don't explain. And then going through and writing backwards, scene by scene, from this happened last, this happened right before that, this was what happened right before that that caused it, and so on, all the way to the very beginning, after which you write the ending that the reader now understands. Having read it once, now gets what it means. You can write you can write little sections, you can write in stories, you can connect one part by one character and then jump to the same events as seen through the eyes of another character, and then do a third part of a book as seen through the eyes of a third character, where each character's vision of what happens in your story reveals more about what the actual story is, so that you don't know the whole thing until you have seen your world through these three characters' eyes. There is no limit to what you can do in a novel. Novels are gorgeous things, and short stories are more of the same. They're wonderful. There is no set structure. Now, there are ways that you can do a very short story to a specific structure, and it will come out right. And I have a free course for this. I mean, as free as in you don't have to give a credit card. You don't have to do anything but sign up for it and take it. It's 3 weeks. It's called How to Write Flash Fiction That Doesn't Suck. And this particular course, my first group of people who went through it were starting to sell their work by the end of week 3 when they started putting their stories out. They were starting to win contests with this little class. They were starting to discover that they could really write good fiction. And, it is just, with that particular class, it teaches you how to get the information you need into a beginning for a piece of fiction that's 500 words long. And then the middle, which is, maybe 250, 300 words of the story, and then a twist ending, or an irony ending. Either way, you understand the different parts of a story, but once you understand these parts, then you are no longer constrained to the structure of the very, very short story. Once you understand the specific parts of fiction, you're good. Now, is there something that needs to be at the beginning of the book? In other words, okay, yeah, this actually takes me into the next question. I'm glad I set these up this way. Is it different for writing a short story? After about 10 to 15,000 words, no, you can write the short story the same way you would write a novel. When it was shorter than 10,000 words, you do need a little bit more of a helpful structure, so just because there is so little space in which to get things done. But is there something important that needs to be at the beginning of the book? In other words, what are the 2 or 3 things you can't leave out? There are 5. Protagonist, antagonist, conflict, setting, and twist. I'm going to go through that again, okay? If you're taking notes, one more time here, okay? Protagonist, antagonist, conflict, setting, and twist. Those are the elements that must be in every piece of good fiction. If you are missing any of these, you know right off the bat that what you are writing is not good fiction. It's and we go through this heavily in How to Think Sideways. Okay, finding your readers. How do I know which audience I should target my stories towards? How should this affect my writing while I'm creating the story? You don't target the readers. You don't. Readers are not your targets. You figure out what you like, and you let the people who love what you love find you. And part of this is creating stuff on a blog or in a newsletter that shows the world who you are. I have another piece of fiction, or another piece of nonfiction on my hollylyle.com site. And I didn't actually link this one, and I should have. It is Why Not Everyone Has to Like You, and why they shouldn't. You're not trying to write for everybody. You are trying to write a story that matters to you. And by writing something that you are passionate about and that matters to you, something that you really deeply care about, you will get the readers that you have earned. It's not like you're going out big game hunting. You can find your readers by putting yourself out there. I have frequently referred to this as dancing naked on a rooftop. And for me, it's a lot like that. It really is, because my fiction is very much who I am. And I write some pretty weird fiction. So yeah, you can extrapolate from that. And yeah, my fiction is pretty much who I am. Okay, doing the work. This is good. You seem to stay busy. You're always putting out new work in some form or another. Out of curiosity, how much time per day or week do you devote to writing, your planning, etc.? How do you balance the rest of your life with your writing career? Example, I have a 1-year-old and he is my responsibility. It's difficult at this stage of his life to get things accomplished while he's awake, and his nap times are precious and not as long as I'd like. I'm interested in advice on how to make that time work for me. Is it just a matter of training my muse? Where does your drive come from? You are like the Energizer Bunny. You just keep plugging away no matter what happens. How do you do that? Okay, there are a couple of different questions here. One is how I do it, and one is how you do it. First, you have to understand that I do not have one business. I have three. I have teaching nonfiction writing. I have writing my own fiction. And I have working on websites. I am in the process right now of ditching working on websites. I've got Dan Allen, thank God. And he is building software for me that is going to allow me to not work on websites anymore. I'm keeping him on. He's my guy. He is building my sites for me. And so I'm cutting down on what I work, because all last year, for the better part of last year, I was working 10, 12-hour days, 6 days a week. Towards the end of last year, when things got really crazy, I was working 14-hour days or more, 7 days a week. This doesn't leave a lot of time for anything else. I managed to make time. My guys and I, my husband, my son, my youngest son, and I carved time out of my stupid, crazy schedule. But you want to do what you love. And so what I am doing, and what will work for you, is to eliminate everything you don't. For me, working on websites was something, it was fun when I got started because it was new and nobody else knew how to do it. I've been doing this for a long time. Nobody knew how to build websites, and I decided I was going to teach myself, and I did. And it became kind of a habit. I've been doing my own websites since 1996, maybe. I started with a little freebie site that turned into an enormous site on sff.net. And they were awesome, but I outgrew them. I needed my own domain. And this was back when nobody had their own domain. This was a big deal, getting your own domain. But you don't want this. What you want is to figure out what you love and just do that. What that means is if you can get somebody else if you can eventually afford to get somebody else to do your website for you, do it. If you can eventually afford to get somebody else to edit your manuscripts for you, do it. Figure out what matters. Your baby matters. Sitting down and getting X number of words a day. Start small, 250, 300. Give yourself a break. Having a newborn, having a small child is really tough. I had to do that. I was already and had been a full-time writer for quite a while when I had my youngest child. And I had no choice. I had to keep writing. So what I did was put him in his bouncy chair on my desk, and I bounced him while I was typing. And his dad would come home from work and take over for me. And I wrote weird hours and lots of hours. I wouldn't want to have to do that again. I put as much hours, I put as many hours into it now as I did then, but okay. Anyway, moving on. I get a little wound up about some of these. How do I balance the tasks of writing, replying to email, keep up with my Twitter account and author website until still take care of my personal life, helping my mother-in-law, and exercise? Okay, well, exercise for me it's critical. I have to do it. I discovered that if I set a timer on my cell phone for 3 5-minute periods a day, and I go out and do, and 3 times a day my alarm will go off, and I'll go out and I'll do 3 sets of squats in that 5 minutes, or I'll do 3 sets of push-ups in that 5 minutes. And those are the 2 exercises I do, because those work pretty much everything, and I alternate them between days. It allows me to stay healthy in about 15 minutes a day. Yeah, there might be people who frown on this or think that's not sufficient. It works for me. You have to figure out what works for you. I also am very careful about what I eat, so I get a little bit of a bonus from that. Okay. Oh, and as for the rest of it, again, figure out what really matters to you. Figure out what pays the bills. Do what pays the bills first. Do what rewards you with joy and happiness second. If you can do what pays the bills by doing what rewards you with joy and happiness, as in writing stuff you love, then you've taken care of 2 needs at once. And then anything that does not bring in money, does not make you happy, dump. Okay, tools. Oh yeah, this is a great question. I need word processing program designed for novel writing and instruction on how to use it. Is there such a thing? There is. There is. I have been, since it first came out, a huge fan of Scrivener. Scrivener comes with massive documentation in the form of videos and in the form of ebooks. I have got the links for this. I will include them with the PDF when I post it for you. It's going to be on the same page where you asked your questions on my blog, just to make this easy. Okay, goals. How do you set realistic goals and not overwhelm yourself? How do you make your personal deadlines matter, in particular if you're not needing the sales to survive? Okay, this is 2 separate questions. How do you set realistic goals and not overwhelm yourself? Initially, you won't. Initially, your goals are going to be off, and you are going to learn by experience which goals actually work for you and which goals are excessive. And you modify. If you are not crazy, you modify so that you learn to eventually hit your goals. Again, this is training your brain to success rather than training your brain to failure. The second thing, how do you make your personal deadlines matter? This one is really easy. It's a little harsh, but it's really easy. You are going to die someday. And when you do, all that you have done in your life is going to be what you have left behind. Have you left anything behind that matters to you now? If you haven't, figure out what matters and do that. And if you keep in mind that you have a limited amount of time in which to create what you are passionate about, then your deadlines matter. And it doesn't matter what you write. It really doesn't. If you love it, write it. It doesn't have to be majestic. It doesn't have to be anything but just that it makes you happy when you do it. But live your life so that what you are doing every day genuinely matters to you. And deadlines kind of disappear because you're doing what you want to do anyway. Okay, concepts and ideas. Okay, now we're getting into actual story writing stuff. How do you figure out what story to focus on? I have anywhere from 8 to 15 different stories running around vying for attention at a time. Some of them are even about the same characters. You have to pick one. If you can organize them into, well, all of these stories are about this specific character, and then list for yourself what order these stories would take place in, you've got yourself a series. If they are all random ideas, then you have to either pick one that you are passionate about, or if you're passionate about all of them, throw a dart at a board write the one that you hit, and move on to the next one after that. The most important, the most critical thing you can do as a writer, though, is to start a story and then finish that story. Even if it sucks, even if it is just awful, you want to start from the beginning and right to the end. And this is one of the reasons why I have moved to recommending highly that you start out by writing short fiction, because your time invested is much shorter. You have much more elbow room to write bad stuff and get it out of the way. And by the time you are able to write better, you will, and start having products that are saleable, you have something that is inexpensive for people to buy. Short fiction you can sell for anywhere from 99 cents to $2.99, and people will pick it up. More in the 99-cent range if they've never heard of you. If you know that your story is awesome, publish the first one at 99 cents, publish the next one at $1.99, publish the third story at $2.99. See if people who bought the first one will pick up the second and will pick up the third, and then figure out how much you're making from each book, because a 99-cent sale is going to make you a lot less money overall than a comparable, an equivalent number of sales for a $2.99 book. Just there are some mathematical formulas you can do on this to figure out. They're posted all over the internet, and so I'm not going to go ahead and get into that. But start with short fiction first. People who are wanting to start with novels and SelfPub are making things difficult for themselves, because you have a much longer time from initiation of project to turning that project into something that is going to pay you. And the objective of writing for a living is to get paid. And I know this is anathema to a lot of people, that they want to think that writing is art and money is evil. And that's fine if you want to do it as a hobby. But if you are looking at making this your business, if you want to actually get to live on your work and just write for a living, you have to lose very quickly the idea that money is evil. Money is your friend, because money is the only thing that puts a roof over your head and food on your table and keeps your kids safe and keeps your significant other safe. Nothing else will do that. So, okay, on to the next. I have multiple story ideas that twist a universal concept like magic. And I've renamed it, but it's basically magic with a new name on top. Is that okay to do, or would it just overcomplicate things for the reader? Should I keep those overarching concepts in the world to universal ideas so that people will understand? I have made an entire career out of writing stuff that doesn't exist. And the reason that my stuff sold is because I was very specific about this stuff that doesn't exist. I built worlds, and I built them to detail. And what you are talking about is just writing some sort of a general Dungeons and Dragons versus knockoff, versus writing something that is deeply personal and well thought out. And if you're just going to do a Dungeons and Dragons knockoff, don't bother. The world does not need more of the same. What it needs is your unique perspective, what you are capable of bringing to anything. Okay, next we're going to go to many times I find myself at a crossroads within a story. My brain usually generates more than 2 possible outcomes, sometimes as many as 10. How do I sort through all the mess in my mind and really tighten my lens so I can tell the best version of my story that I want? Plot cards help. What you do is you write down one sentence in which you describe what you want that scene to do. You write down a plot card for each different version of the story. You throw them all in a pile and you start organizing them. And the best version of the story will come out of these plot cards, and you will figure out which one you want to write simply by giving yourself all the options and then weeding out the ones that don't work. Okay, right brain dominant. This means I have stories in my head all the time. I end up quite excited about writing something, but within a few days, my mind has already worked itself through the story, and I no longer feel the need to write the story. Do you have any suggestions? Yeah, plot cards. Again, as soon as you have the idea, write down each of the different steps in the story. Because one thing that people think that they do is they think that they understand what their story is about. They think that they know how they are going to get where they want to be in their head. But writing a story in your head is absolutely nothing like writing a story on paper. So just write down the things that you think are going to work, put them into a little index card, 1 sentence per index card outline, and then as you start writing, things will change and you will come up with better ideas. But this does not happen while you're thinking about the story. This only happens while you're writing it. Thinking and writing are not the same. Okay, an opinion question on adverbs. She's noticed that I use them. Yes, I do. And there are a lot of people who say don't use adverbs in your fiction. You know what? Words exist for a reason. They exist because they describe concepts that we cannot present in any other way. You cannot give somebody a look, or you cannot look your book at them. You cannot think your book at them. You have to write it down in words. And adverbs are part of your toolbox. Don't use them excessively, but yeah, use them. Story planning. How many scenes should a novel have? Does it matter? No. What matters is that you have character, or you have protagonist, antagonist, conflict, setting, and twist. And if you have those 5 things and you work them through on a scene-by-scene basis, you're telling a story, and it will go in the number of scenes that you need. Now, if you get really rigid about this, you can say, well, all of my scenes are going to be 1,000 words, or all of my scenes are going to be 2,000 words, and my book is going to be exactly this long. And I started out writing this way. So, if you think this is crazy, well, yeah, it is a little bit. But it did let me know that I was going to have the right number of words when I came to the end of the book. But yeah, I was very proud of the fact that all of my 3,000 word chapters had 3,000 words. And you can fit any story into any structure. You can fit any story into any length. What you have to do is write enough to know which lengths feel better and read better for which stories. Okay, we are so running out of time. Already an hour into this thing, and we're on page 5. There is no way I am going to make it through 14 pages of this. I am really sorry. I think I might have to do a couple of these as maybe little mini workshops on how to think sideways, just because there is so much stuff here. I don't have a whole lot of time to do that I can just put into a bunch of free content. I too am supporting a family, and I live on my writing. And so if I do these, I will do the rest of them as, yeah, I'll do these as a couple of workshops within how to think sideways. So what I've got here, I'm going to scoot kind of towards the back. There's just a ton of stuff in here on indie versus commercial publishing, and I cover that in the course. And there's stuff on story planning, and there's stuff on revision and editing, and publishing, and building a backlist, and websites, and promotion, and editors, and ISBNs, and copyright, and pricing. And my throat is starting to hurt and get dry. So what I'm going to end up doing here is I'm going to present just the page to you. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to close the poll because we should have plenty of answers on that now. And we'll take a look at that in a minute. All right. And in the meantime, I'm going to just send you to the webpage. This is just to take a look. You're not going to land where you have to buy something or anything like that. But if you will go into pop-ins, you will see where I've got the complete curriculum for everything that How to Think Sideways covers. It covers so much more than what we've been able to touch on in this hour. It is a 29-week, a 27-week course. It includes a bonus. You're coming in at around 30 weeks because I also included a freebie course at the end of it for people as a graduation gift. Let me see. I'm going to just try a couple more questions here. While that page is up, it will not take you to a separate page. It will open in a separate window for you, so you can stay here. Here's one that I like so much, and this is a commercial publishing question. The course does cover both commercial and indie publishing, and it was initially heavily weighted towards commercial publishing because indie publishing wasn't out there when I wrote it, the first version of it. So this is, when you get a publishing deal with a traditional publisher, how do you know when you can push back? In other words, when do you know when you should stick to something or should you go along? I published more than 30 books with commercial publishers. For the most part, I was a very, very agreeable writer. I was not picky about, I would go through and I would check the commas, but you have this little thing called stet, where if you don't like what they've done with the manuscript, you can just stet. And they'll, leave it alone. Make sure you aren't wrong when you put something in as a stet. Make sure that, you actually won it that way, because you can make yourself like an idiot by stetting stuff that needs to actually be fixed. However, in my 32, 33 novels with commercial publishing, I had one book that was hack jobbed by an editor who just absolutely and utterly screwed it up. I can't even say the words here because I'm being polite. And I got the manuscript back, and she had quit. She was now doing something else, someplace else. And the editor who came in and followed her wasn't interested in the book. It wasn't her book. She hadn't acquired it. She didn't care. So I received the manuscript, and I was given an 11-day turnaround, which I can do. I can completely revise a novel in 11 days if I have to. It's a process. I'm good at it. But I looked at this and I saw that she had cut out one of my two main characters, just removed him from the first half of the book. And then in the second half, where the first main character and the second main character get together, he was in there, but this was the first time anybody was seeing him. So he didn't mean anything. She broke the damn book. I broke it. And I told my new editor this, and she said, well, just fix it, fix it along the copy editor's guidelines. I said, the copy editor is lost because the first half of the book is missing, or at least the first half of the book is missing. And she said, well, just make it work. Okay, bad words are ensuing in my head here now that are just so bad that I can't say them. And I called up my agent and I said, no. And I posted on my blog and I said, look, the book has been just totally screwed up. At this point, I am at the position where I am, if it does not get fixed, I am going to tell you here now not to buy the book. And if you have an author who is telling readers who have been excited about reading the book, I think this is screwed up and no, don't buy it. You are at war with your publisher, and that was it. I went to war. I very carefully went through and described in specific detail exactly what each section of the book was supposed to accomplish, and I sent this letter just laced with profanity to my agent, who then cleaned it up and forwarded it to my editor. And apparently I made enough of a stink about it online and elsewhere that the publisher decided that they did not want to deal with me. So they said, okay, we are going to publish the book the way you wrote it. At which I went, yay. But this is one of my horror stories of commercial publishing. And this was one of the incidents that led to me saying, screw that, I will take care of my career for myself right now. And from now on, thank you very much. And I've got to tell you, it's worked out much better for me. Because yeah, they could have just said, well, we are going to publish it the way the editor edited it, and you can live with it. They could have done that. They didn't, and I am very grateful that they didn't. But they did not want another book from me after that, nor did I particularly want to write one for them, because what they were doing was not supporting fiction. It was not allowing writers to write good books. They had castrated the book in order to fit it into a much shorter word length, and that was it didn't work. I write very tight. I wrote long books. I mean, that was like 230,000 words, I think, but I couldn't find any place to cut it, and I'm really good at cutting things out. This is, I can rip anything apart. And I couldn't this because I had very carefully crafted the damn thing from the beginning so that it would be coherent and tight, and it was. And that book, by the way, is Hawkspar, in case you were wondering. And with that, God, there's just so much here, man. And they were all such great questions. Okay, there was one question here at the end. There were a couple questions here. Oh. Which of the lessons proved most helpful for nonfiction writing? There have been a lot of nonfiction writers who have taken the How to Think Sideways course. And it's designed primarily for fiction, but if you are writing personal nonfiction, this is not self-help books or how to build a door in 27 easy steps or things like that. If you are writing biography, autobiography, memoir, something along the lines of Douglas Adams' Last Chance to See, which is this passionate look at the environment. It will work for any of those sort of things. All of the lessons count. The ones on characterization may not count if you're doing something in a more technical vein. But pretty much everything will work for nonfiction as well as fiction. Okay, then there is it possible to find left brain peace through How to Think Sideways when I feel so lousy about myself, or should I just invest in additional therapy sessions with my therapist? One of the nice things about being a writer is that you get paid to be just a little crazy. People who know my story know that I have a lot of background, a lot of crap that I had to wade through. And writing was the way that I did that. You don't need, I'm not telling you don't get therapy, okay? What I am saying is that you will get paid well for not getting therapy. The process of writing good fiction is digging into yourself and thinking about what matters to you. And a lot of times what matters to you is tearing apart the son of a bitch who abused your kids, or whatever your personal horror story was. A lot of that, if you have a rough past and a lot of conflict in your past, you are a prime writer, because you have stuff inside of you that has been looking for a way to get out for a long time now. And finally, what is the single most important thing students who graduate from How to Think Sideways will be able to do? You will be able to create for yourself either an indie publishing career or a commercial publishing career, because that's what the course is. It is how to do everything from start fiction, through finish fiction, through self-published fiction, through present fiction to agents and editors and commercial publishers, and how to get paid, and how to do the next book and every book thereafter. It is a book, or it is a course about building your career. And when you finish the course, that is what you will be able to do. And with that, thank you very much for joining me. I hope this has been useful. It went a lot longer than I had anticipated, and even then we didn't even cover a third of the questions. So I will get to these, but I'm going to have to do it in a different format. And thank you very much for joining me. The course is How to Think Sideways. And if you miss it today or tomorrow, you will be able to get it again sometime in probably March or later of 2016. And I will see you soon.